Jeff Foxworthy.
Hey, how are you?
Man, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. You know, I told myself if I ever got a chance to meet you or talk to you, I would not do this, but I swear I literally had something happen a couple weeks ago, and I have to tell you, a friend of mine called me from back home, and I live in Chicago now, but I'm from a small town in Southern Illinois, like 7,000 people. Senior prank was drive your tractor to school day. So like,
the kind of the best places to grow up.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for the world. So he calls me and he says, "You're not going to believe this. Not one, but 3 kids that we went to high school with are going to be on the Jerry Springer show." I'm not kidding.
Or what?
I said, "Well, okay." I couldn't believe it. I said, "What's the name of the show?" He said, "Hottie Hookups." And I swear to God, the first thing that came to my head was, well, if you know not one but 3 people on the Jerry Springer show, you might be a redneck.
Yeah, that might even, you could eliminate the might be a redneck. You are a redneck if you.
Oh man, no kidding. It was so funny. I'm just like, oh my God.
That's the funniest stuff.
And then I'm like, I feel like I find out I get to talk to you. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. So
that's beautiful.
Looking at your resume, it's absolutely stacked. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? You're the highest selling comedy recording artist, the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, which still makes me cry. And of course, Blue Collar TV. And now, is this your, don't get me wrong, is this your 26th or 27th book?
It's either 27 or 28.
Wow.
It's the 3rd children's book. I do know that. It's the 3rd children's book.
Okay, and it's called Hide, which is it's ultimately a children's book about the game of hide and seek. And talk about that. I mean, I read a couple of the lines, and it's very clever. It's very funny. Go into it a little more.
Well, the first one I did, I'd always wanted to do a kid's book, and when I started hosting Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader, suddenly every little kid knew who I was. And so my daughters were like, "Dad, you've always talked about doing this. You ought to do it now. Kids know who you are." And sat down to write the first one, which was called Dirt on My Shirt. And there was a poem within that book that said, "I looked out the window and saw a snake crawling around in the yard. My dad tried to find it, but it got away. I don't think he looked very hard." And Steve Bjorkman, the illustrator, had hidden a snake within the flower bed, which I never noticed when we were doing the book. And I went around to elementary schools and started reading the kids, and they all found the snake right off the bat while I was reading the thing.
They're used to Where's Waldo.
They're seeing things I don't see, and it's, from Where's Waldo and the I Spy books. They love finding things. I said, and I've never met a kid that didn't like hide and go seek. I said, why don't we do a book about a giant neighborhood game of hide and go seek, but the reader has to find the kid that's hiding. And he said, well, why don't we hide other stuff? And as the book goes on, you got to find more and more stuff hidden within the illustration. And it just kind of took off from there. And you do a lot of things, and the end result is it's not quite what you envision, and sometimes it ends up terrible. But every once in a while you do something, and it ends up better than you envisioned it. And that was kind of the way this book was. We put it together, and Steve's such a great illustrator, and the pictures are so colorful, and we started sending it out, and the reviews started coming back, and people were giving it 5 stars. I love this little book.
It's fantastic. My mom's a teacher, and she teaches K through 8 English literature, so I'm definitely going to get her the book for Christmas to take into the kids and have her read it. I know they'll dig it for sure.
And your mom would probably appreciate this, but my grandmother was not an educated woman. She lived in a trailer, but she had bookshelves all through it, and she loved to read. And when we were little, she used to tell us, people that don't read are at the mercy of people that do. And so she taught us as an early age to love books. And I kind of tried to do that to my daughters. And, now they're in college, and they still love to read. And so when I sat down to do these books, I thought, I don't want to do a book that kids are going to read one time and put on a shelf. I wanted to do books that they pull out over and over and over again, kind of like we did with Green Eggs and Ham or One Fish, Two Fish,
Yeah, it is funny you say that. I'm in college myself. I'm a senior, and I'm starting to pull out more books that I've read before, and it's coming full circle that I read it back then, and now I want to read it again because it really made an impact on my life, and it's amazing that we kind of go back to the roots we were as children.
Yeah, I think it does, and so when I sit down to do these, I try, like the first one was called Dirt on My Shirt, because when I was growing up, and you being from a small town, probably it was the same way. If you were a kid and you came home so dirty that your mom made you get undressed on the porch before you came in the house, it was a great day.
It's a great day.
And so that was kind of the idea behind that was, even though we've got so much more technology and things now, there's some things about being a kid that never change. And so that's kind of who I wanted to write to. But you have adults come back and go, oh, man, like you're talking about, I remember this. This is, and when I sit down to write, I kind of have to go back and make myself be a little kid and remember what was funny to me then. What did I like to do then?
Now, I guess you're going to be touring the book around to some schools, reading it to kids.
Which is kind of a fun thing to do. I've never done it, but I go around to a lot of elementary schools and read, and, because of fifth graders, like I said, the kids know who I am. So it's just, little kids are they're like old people. There's no filter between thinking it and saying it, so there are a lot of sit in there and talk to. I was doing a school not long ago, and one of the first grade teachers was telling me, she said, last week we had Say No to Drugs and Alcohol Week at school, and she said the first graders made a giant banner that said, I pledge to say no to drugs and alcohol, and she said they all signed their name on it. She said, we got down to the end of the line to sign it, and one little boy said, Miss Cox, I'm not going to sign the banner. And she said, well, Justin, why not? And he said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a couple of beers. And I'm like, what has happened to you in the first grade that you've already made the decision to have a couple of beers?
Oh, it's so funny. I think you should have Ron White open up for you on your children's book tour. What do you think?
That's kind of the way the whole blue collar thing started, because Ron opened for me. I saw Ron the first time he was ever on stage, going up at an amateur night. I was working at a club in Arlington, Texas, and Ron opened up for me for years. And then when we started doing the blue collar thing, me and Bill and Larry and Ron had been buddies forever, and so that's how kind of that started. And we did that for a long time. But now Ron's like, he goes, it's too hard to write clean. I'm not working with you guys anymore.
I can see him saying that.
And I have just started going back out on our own, and we're calling this tour, we can't call it Blue Collar because we don't have Ron, but it's called Them Idiots.
Them Idiots.
Them Idiots. And in fact, we're coming to the Allstate Arena there the 19th of this month. And I got to tell you, it's as funny as anything we ever did on Blue Collar. We are having so much fun. We haven't been on stage together in 3 or 4 years, so we're just kind of having a ball with it.
I'll be at that show. The book available on Amazon.com and, of course, in stores at Barnes & Noble. Man, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you for having me, and I'm glad you enjoyed the book. It's a fun little book.
My man, Jeff Foxworthy, the book is called Hide, and it's in stores now. Go pick it up.